You know, we have enough garbage on this planet. Why solidify the clay and keep it for thousands of years if it's not something you really want to keep, or it doesn't make a mark in some way? And it doesn't have to be a big thing. I think you have to be true to what you're trying to do and not just accept whatever comes out. Okay. In 1974, I started teaching here at Lehman, and I was just out of graduate school, and there were two other people teaching ceramics at the same time as I was. So I was very young, very scared, because many of the students were older than me. I start my day usually around 12, and I have an office hour on both Mondays and Thursdays, or whatever days it works out. And I teach a class from 1 to 4:30, and then a class from basically 5:30 to 9. Any of these techniques are usable on this piece. You may use some of them, you may use all of them, but you're going to decide what techniques relate best to the form that you've chosen. And as opposed to before, where I gave you a specific object to make, now I ask you to each go back home and find some object from real life that you feel would be fun to blow up larger and make into a pop art object. So roll out the pieces of clay after you've created a pattern. Then you're going to score and slip and attach all the parts together. And so these students come in, many of them at night, and they know what they want to do, they know how they want to do it, and they are tough and they are good and they want to learn. And to me, there's nothing more gratifying than taking students from point A to point Z. My goal is not just to demonstrate and have them make exactly what I make. It's to teach them techniques and then have them go off on their own. Clay is a very interesting material in that it talks to you. And the first time someone ever told me that the clay was going to listen to what the clay says, I thought, this professor is definitely doing more drugs than the students are, because how can he expect me to hear the clay talk? But the truth is, the clay does talk to you. It tells you when it's too soft, it tells you when it's too hard, it tells you when it wants to get wide, it tells you when it wants to get taller. And it's my job to either listen to the clay and do what it wants, or I have to prepare the clay a little differently so that it can do exactly what I want. I am now going to create what I want. I'm not going to let the clay take me where it wants to. Now, sometimes it's fun to let the clay take you because you may not have thought about going there. But in general, I start out with an idea and I try to carry it out. Sometimes the unexpected is probably better than the expected. Very often you realize that you learn more from mistakes than when you get it right the first time. The Encore students are an extraordinary group of adults. I'm so pleased and so proud of the program that we have here for them. Many of them are exceptionally talented. They grew up, they had their careers, they raised families, they worked, and now that they're retired, they're doing what they love to do. They're in the studio constantly, which is fabulous for me and the younger students, because even when I'm not there, there are mentors in the room that are more than willing to give and demonstrate and stand by their sides and show them how to hold their hands or how to glaze or how to decorate or how to use certain tools that we have.
Hi, my name is Deborah, and I'm an Encore student at Lehman College. I first started in 2019. I took Hand building with Professor Janet Skolnik. I enjoyed the class. The professor is amazing. Her hands are 20/20. I've learned a lot over the years. I'm still learning. There's other people in my class who've been doing it 20, 30, 40 years. So I'm the baby of the group, but I'm still learning. I enjoy it.
Hi, my name is Laura Chenbin, and I've been coming and taking ceramics at Lehman as an Encore student since the fall of 2016 after I retired from full-time work. One of the best things about the program here is the way the professor has set up a real studio environment. So there are people who are coming at different stages of their lives for different purposes, and she is able to integrate all of them into a learning environment.
I'm Edith Boehm, and I'm an Encore student with Dr. Janet Skolnik. A friend introduced me to pottery about a year after my son was killed in a car accident. And I have been trying some way to find a meaningful way to keep his memory alive. All my pottery has in memory of Yehuda, who was my son. I don't sell the pottery. I give it to people to have in their home as a way of remembering him.
My studio is about a 2.5-car garage that's got very, very, very tall ceilings. I have work tables. I have 3 kilns in there. I was always very fond of this because as it dried, it didn't dry straight and it fired so that you have different levels. And I just have ideas all the time, you know, that's, I would say my most prolific thing is the ideas, much more so than carrying out the ideas. Having a studio in your house is ideal. I highly recommend it, no matter whether you have to give up your kitchen, your living room, your garage. My cars have never, ever, ever seen the inside of a garage. They live outside where they should live.
I'm Missy Skolnik. I'm Janet Skolnik's daughter. When I was a kid, it was always so magical to see how she could really take a piece of clay and transform it into something so magical. She's always been a clay fairy to me, and it's just been an incredibly unique part of who she is. People have all different kinds of abilities, and you can't judge, you can't judge just because someone has a visual impairment, that maybe they can't do something absolutely extraordinary. So I think that it both taught me to not be quick to judge, and also that it's really important to not let challenges stop you from trying, and maybe you'll fail, but maybe you won't. So I think it's been a really incredible gift in a strange way.
When I was less than 35 years old, I tripped on the street on one of the concrete blocks, and I went stumbling and hit my head on a big column, and I went down for the count. And the ambulance came and they took me to the hospital and they x-rayed my brains and this and that, and they said, "Oh, you're fine," except for the big lump on my head. And they said, "But if you have any changes in vision or hearing, check it out with a doctor." And so a few days later, I saw these incredible streaks across my eyes. And I went to the eye doctor, and I always had 20/15 vision. I never saw an eye doctor before. And he said he was very concerned because my optic nerve was very swollen. To make a very long, terrible story short, they decided they had an autoimmune disease that was causing an enzyme in my retina to react to another enzyme in my blood. And they said it was genetic. And over the years, as I continued working, I was thrilled that I was in a sensory art. where you feel everything. And so in the last 10 years, when my vision has decreased, even though all the specialists say, no, your disease is very quiet, it's not active at all. And I said, so how come I don't see as much as I used to? And they explained that as you age, you lose cells in your eyes. In my case, I lost many, 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 many more. Is it difficult? Yeah, it's difficult, but I've had the fortune to go into galleries and even at museums, and I've told them that I'm visually impaired, and they let me touch things that most other people are not allowed to touch. And so one of my students said to me, oh, Professor Janet, don't worry about your vision. You have 20/20 hands. And I try to keep that in my head all the time. Over the years, I've taught courses in building outdoor kilns. And we've done raku firings right here. Okay, so we would build the kiln over here, and we would have the garbage pails where you do the reduction over here, and then by that wall we would stick them in buckets of water to cool them off. So we had the kiln, which is, you use propane gas, and we would have the tanks, and we would get the kiln fired up, and then while the pieces are at maturity, like 1800 degrees, you take them out with these big tongues, and you put them in a garbage pail full of burnable material, and you'd cover it up, and the burnable material would catch fire. And then when there was no more oxygen in that metal can, it would suck the oxygen out of the glazes and the clay, and you get these beautiful iridescent colors and magical things. This campus has some of the most beautiful fragrances and trees. And this art building is a landmark building. It was designed by Marcel Breuer. I think what I like most about the campus, besides the diversity of the buildings, which reminds me of our student body, is I truly love the greenery. I mean, here we are in a New York City public college, and look at all the greens that are around. It's not a bad place to work. I think you have to let your feelings, your thoughts, your ideas come through your material. That the material is the vehicle for saying what you want to say. And probably my favorite things to say are just about pure form. Whether they be very, very simple or whether they be complex, it's about the form, the volume, the tension, the space that it fills.